This week on The Backroom, we visited the East Africa Breweries Limited in Ruaraka, and we're going to show you the brewing process, to be specific, how Guinness is made. Let's have a look. To make the beverage, grain, roasted barley, water, hops and yeast are the core ingredients.
We take the grain, which is pre-selected and checked by our quality. So it's taken through a milling process. From the silos, it will use the conveyors into the mill. It's basically the process like how you grind your maize to make the flour. In brewing, we call it grist.
To make the Guinness beverage, 10 tons of the grist is milled and stored in the grist case.
Once we have the 10 tons, then we begin the process we call mashing. Mashing is basically mixing that grist with water at a controlled temperature.
Through a process called saccharification, the food reserves in the grains are broken down into simple sugars known as fermentables that the yeast will later work on to form the alcohol.
We do process checks. The lab helps us control that process, and we are controlling to make sure that at the end of that process it is starch negative, and therefore once that is done, we push it through these two machines that you can see here. So these are the two mash filters that we use. So we pump the liquid through them, and like you see here, they have membranes. So we use compressed air to just build pressure to force the liquid through them, and through that process the liquid separates with the spent grains, and we process further the liquid. Again, it's a controlled process because we come back and check that spent grain whether there is any sugar left, and we optimize that process to make sure that all the sugars have been washed out of that spent grain.
The spent grain, which is no longer of use in the process, is sold as animal feed. And the liquid that is in this stage, known as wort, goes on to the next stage.
The sweet wort, we process it further. We take through a stage that we call wort boiling. We are basically sterilizing that liquid. We are also adding what gives the beer that bitterness. We call them hops. From that process, the process is a closed system, so there is no more human contact with the liquid. Only samples that you can draw from the system to do our quality checks.
The bitter wort is taken through the cooling process of between 10 to 15 degrees. The liquid now is ready for fermentation. Yeast is used as a catalyst to speed up this process, but is not absorbed into the liquid. This process converts the sugars into alcohol.
So at the end of about 5 days in fermentation, our Guinness is ready now it has come back down from fermentation, so all the sugar has been consumed, and what we have basically is alcohol. So we cool it down now. We are looking to achieve 4 degrees. At 4 degrees now the yeast comes out of suspension. That yeast is now, you can remove it, comes and settle down at this cone you can see in the vessel, and you're able to remove that yeast, and you're left now with our alcohol. Once we remove the yeast, we cool that beer again to -1 degrees. This helps in what we call colloidal stability. So any liquid, solids that are left suspended in the liquid comes down because of that low temperature, and therefore now we again left with a more clearer liquid.
The beer then moves to the maturation stage.
And now we're going through the final gate, which is the final filtration stage. So you can see the liquid as it comes in, goes through this filter machine, and what comes out is a crystal clear liquid, which you can see here now, which is ready for packaging. At this stage, we also dilute the alcohol to meet the legalized alcohol standard for the brand, because our brewing is normally at slightly higher alcohol than what is normally allowed to be in the bottle. So we add our own water, which we process here. That water is used now to dilute the alcohol to that level.
Join us next week on The Backroom as we explain why Guinness is darker than any other alcoholic beverages, the recycling of the beer bottles, beer tasting and quality assurance, and the very interesting packaging process. Mumbi Warui, The Backroom.